Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side. My love, you say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you. In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
show any fear. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul.
Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side, my love. You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. I don't know what you want. Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side, my love. You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
Eyes in the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you, for you, for you, for you, for you,
We're back, Gavin, for the
We
third
are.
episode of Common Ground. Who would have thought it, eh?
I think you've underplayed it there, Charlie. We are backed by huge popular demand.
Oh, yeah, I should have said that actually. Yeah. If the amount of times I've been stopped by people in the street to talk to me about this show, I mean, I've never had it before in my life this
Right?
bad, which is kind of nice, but I'm always thinking to myself, am I going to get a slap here? Am I going to get a nice comment? And 9 times out of 10, it's nice. Some people have said I've seen it, but I don't like it. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. Appreciate you saying it. But it's been mostly positive, which, yeah, I didn't really expect, actually. I thought most people would just think that we're a pair of pricks and, crack on. And I think most people probably do, but we don't care. So,
Well, yeah. I mean, most people say to me when I see them, "You're skinnier in real life," and I have to remind them that.
yeah, I get the opposite. They go, you're fat, Remy. Yeah, that's
um,
it.
But no, listen, I think it, we have proven, have we not, that there is genuine interest in local politics. And
Mm,
there is genuine interest in a place like Basildon, which, is lively. It's an interesting place. It's not for the faint hearted, but it's also doing important stuff. It affects
mm.
a lot of people. Nearly 200,000 people live in our borough. So, we I think, are tapping into something. And I also think, where else would you go online right now to listen to anybody explaining to you how a council actually works from the inside?
Mm.
Other than some kind of stuffy podcasts that some political consultancy might run with, you know, ex-lawyers coming out chatting away to, like, who cares about that? No one's listening to that stuff. Do you know what I mean? So
Mm.
yeah, I think if it's helpful, that's the other thing that I always say to people when I do my Facebook Lives. I hope it's helpful. I hope people
Mm.
are understanding a bit more about how decisions are taken, why they're taken, and why it's not as simple or as straightforward as some of these populist idiots would have you believe. But I'm sure we'll come on to that a bit later on.
Well, we had 6.5 million views across the last two episodes.
Wow.
Clips. That's all. 6.5 million, which I think is a crazy amount of views considering what you just said there. Basildon is 200,000 people, and we're getting, well, do the maths on that. I'm not going to do it, but it's a lot. And I think that, we got to the end of the first episode, election came. The next episode predicted a lot of what happened in the AGM, and I attended the AGM. It was quite an interesting affair. I mean, I've never walked into a room before which has felt like you could cut the tension with a knife. It was for me as an outsider looking in, really that tense. But you're at the back of the room. You're at the back of the chamber. You're looking at the new mayor of Basildon, make a speech and all rise, hear ye, hear ye. And I just wonder what it was like for you to be at the back of the room looking around thinking, here we go again.
Well, um, I haven't sat on the back benches for 11 years. It was quite an interesting situation because, again, what happens is the administration or the incoming administration, they decide where the different political parties are going to be sat in the chamber. It's always been the case, always, that convention is that the administration sits to the right of the chair, the opposition sit to the left, a bit like the House of Commons. Every council chamber in the country is the same. Andy Barnes and Sam Genet decided that they were going to show us a massive discourtesy and they were going to say that the official opposition, the only group not in the administration or on the payroll, we were going to be shoved off down the back to sit virtually in the public gallery, which was great fun. For me, anyway, I learned so much about myself listening to what people are telling me in the public gallery. But yeah, it was an odd. I mean, that you say you could cut the tension with a knife. The reality is that's the way Basildon Council meetings have been for the last 6 months.
Mm.
It's orchestrated chaos on behalf of Reform UK, and I mean, clapping like fucking seals at SeaWorld when he's elevated to become the mayor of Basildon. Some of these things you sit there and you watch it play out in front of you, and Sam Genet becoming the mayor of Basildon, thanks to the Conservative Party sticking their hand up to vote for him, is one of those moments you're going to sit there and think, "Oh, that's not going to end well," and you're capturing it and the looks on their faces, and there was a few of those Tory councillors, and one of whom is now a cabinet member. And he caught me in the break and he just said to me, "What have we done?" and I said to him, "Yeah, mate, this is it." And there was just a lot of nonsense and a lot of performance in that room. But AGMs are weird because there's no real business at an AGM. And everyone's all excited because they've just gone through an election. But I mean, we can get into it. But when you actually look at that order paper, I mean, it's a disaster. So I can't see this
Should we get
lasting.
into the order paper? Because a lot of people have abused me online, and I don't mind that. Keep
Oh,
it coming. I don't mind it, really, I don't. Because they thought that I was lying about the deal that I tried to get you and Sam to agree on. Now, I've said very clearly, it wasn't my deal. I was just trying to bring people together. And there might have been a few concessions on either side to try and get that thing moving in the direction which we both think was right. Even though we didn't want Sam Genet as the leader of Basildon Council, we acknowledged that he and his group got 80% of the vote. So therefore, why not give him a clear run to run the council? Take us through the deal, because we're here together now, and I think we can just put this to bed, because I think people are getting tired of the he said, she said. I mean, we were both in the middle of it. That deal that you proposed, just explain it to people.
Yeah, so the week before, it started on the Thursday of the week before, where Janae reached out to Jack Ferguson, and he asked Jack if I would be willing to meet him. To which I said, of course I would. My door is open. I was actually travelling out of the country that evening, so I said, look, the first time I could meet is either Sunday evening or it would be Monday. I think Janae rang Jack something like 12 times. And again, you can record all that, can't you? Because you can see when people have rung on your call log. I think he rang him about 12 times, and Jack said, yeah, all right, he'll meet you, but he can't meet you till Monday. But if you'd like to have a chat on the phone, whatever. And I never heard anything from him. And I never heard anything from anyone from Reform. I got phone calls from Eunice Brockman, who was distraught because the deal had been that she was going to be the mayor of Basildon. And over that weekend, Andy Barnes had stuck the knife into Eunice Brockman and said, no, actually, Sam Genet's going to be the mayor, you're not. And she was on the phone to me pleading, will you speak to Andy Barnes? Again, I said, of course I will. My door is open. If anyone wants to pick the phone up. And Andy Barnes said to Eunice, I promise you I'll ring Gavin. Coward that he is, didn't pick the phone up to me, didn't have a conversation. Again, I said, all right, fair enough. And it was on the Tuesday night of the week of the AGM that I was clearing out my office. Heartbreaking, though it was.
You should be used to it by now.
I barely moved in because I didn't expect it to be. Yeah. I was like a Premier League manager. Why buy a place? You ain't going to be there very long. And so about 11:30, we get an email with the order paper on it. So I'm sitting there, I'm reading it. I'm like, so there's 9 Conservative cabinet members. Only 6 of the 11 reformers have been given any job or any responsibility. This is a stitch up. Like I knew Reform were getting shafted, right? Because as I've said on this podcast before, they were always going to be played like a fiddle because of their naivety. But I was looking at it, I was like, come on. Like this is a proper Tory takeover of the council. And as I said to you, they went from 1 in 4 votes in 2024 to 1 in 8 votes in 2026. They've plummeted. No party lost more votes in this election than the Conservative Party. So I said, that's not right. So on the Wednesday morning, I had a conversation with Kerry Smith. And I said to Kerry, look, what's your view on giving Reform a run at it? And Kerry said, I think they should. They've won the election. 24,000 people voted for them. The next highest was the Tories, but that was almost 11,000 fewer votes cast across the borough. So it's slightly on a different scale because turnout is normally higher in Billericay and Wickford. So Kerry was like, yeah, look, they've earned the right. They should be able to govern. So I asked you, because again, I knew that there would have to be some form of an intermediary. So I asked you if you had Sam's number. I got hold of Sam, I texted him and I said, look, we've had our differences, but I'd like to offer you the chance to govern. And would you meet with Kerry Smith and I? And I asked you to follow up. And I think on that Wednesday, it went backwards and forwards. And I basically said, look, we'll abstain. Kerry will vote with you. And so you'll get the 4 independent votes. I still think if my red line, every political party's got their red lines. I had 2. One was I wanted the mayoralty. So I wanted Adele Brown to be the mayor. And the second was I wanted the area committees. And if you had put the area committees into the deal, you would have got Alan Ball, because Alan Ball would have wanted to chair the Wickford area committee. So that's another vote that you would have been able to bank on. So actually it would have been 15 votes in Reform's favour versus only 14 in the Tories' favour. So he had the chance to govern. And I made it really clear that that's what we would do and we would respect the vote. And Sam shit his pants, basically. And when the prospect of being the leader of the council and having the power and the responsibility and delivering on it, he decided he'd rather get dressed up like a Christmas tree and run around the borough telling everybody that he's the greatest thing and we're going to have peace and harmony in our time and we're going to have, brilliant debates and we're going to have sing songs and kumbayas before every council meeting. No one believes a fucking word of it, to be honest. It's just absolute load of rubbish. And so he sold out. And that's why you are seeing now on social media, I put a video out on the day of the election, or day of the AGM, and I said, this is the deal, this is what I've offered, I respect the result. And Sam tried to claim that you were lying, that none of this had ever happened, and that then all of a sudden it was the Wickford Independents' fault and they weren't on board and they weren't supporting him. None of which is true. It's all, I'll put the maps out to prove that he could have governed. But in the end, what you're seeing now on social media is a lot of anger towards reform. And you're seeing a lot of people realise that actually they've sold out their voters. And as I said at the AGM, the irony of all ironies is I have been battered on social media for 6 months by people telling me that I was stealing democracy, I was trying to stop people going and casting their vote. And yet Reform and the Tories, who led the campaign to have the elections reinstated, have just completely and utterly ignored what the people in Basildon, Billericay, Wickford, Pitsea and Langdon voted for on the 7th of May, because whatever configuration you look at, in the majority of the wards that voted, 70% of the votes in the majority of the wards were for Labour and for Reform, right? They were not for the Billericay Tories. South of the 127, they were finishing behind the Greens, right? Nobody wants this. And ultimately, you can wrap this up whichever way you want. The Tories are only governing Basildon Council because Reform sold their voters out.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it was a conversation I had with Sam quite a bit when I was trying to negotiate between the two of you that, I know many of the people in that Conservative group. Some of them I really do adore. I think some of them are really nice people. But then also know that there's some people in that group which are slippery and can't be trusted. And, Sam was kind of offended that I put up that image of him as a dog tied to a tree with the Conservative logo stitched into it. But at the end of the day, I said to him, you're going to be their puppy dog if you take this deal. And he seems to think that Reform have got this wonderful plan to hold them to account. It's kind of like a nuclear Armageddon type of situation where if you shoot their bomb, they're going to shoot theirs and everyone's going to blow each other up. And I thought, no, you've got no influence on any committees. All you're going to do is rubber stamp. We'll get onto this in a minute, but, do, like you said, the kumbaya stuff, trying to persuade councillors now they've got to sing the national anthem at the beginning and ending of council meetings. I mean, I don't know how that's going to wash. I think he's got more chance of restarting that deal with you than he's got of that working. But I did say to him many times, look, you may not like Gavin, you may not trust him. I don't blame you for that. But do you want to fulfil the promise you made to people, which is we're going to change Basildon, we're going to make it better, we're going to improve things? And I thought, do you know what? When you've got that opportunity, you don't take the ceremonial sit back and lapping it up bullshit. Because no disrespect to Eddie Mayers, but I wouldn't do it because it'd be boring. It's so boring. And for someone as outspoken as Sam, that's why I said that, he's essentially the Conservatives' dog tied to the tree because he can't do anything now. He can't do anything now. And he doesn't see that. But at the same time, he demanded an apology from you to make the deal. So he wanted an apology from you for slagging him off online, criticising him, criticising his politics, when all the while he probably owes you an apology.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's on that point around the apology, I mean, I made it clear. Sam has posted pictures of my house. We've had to take my children out of nursery. A week after my mum died, he dragged me into a court hearing about an injunction, which was laughed out of court by a judge. Every day on social media, he's alleged corruption, conflicts of interest without providing a shred of evidence or shred of truth about it. He has allowed some appalling stuff to be in the comment section of his posts. Listen, right? It's fucking politics, right? It's big boy stuff. And ultimately, if you want the power of running a council, I was giving it to Sam Genet, and he bottled it. And there's no two ways about it. That is what he did. He bottled it. And the scenario that you've just described there around this kind of the nuclear standoff, if you like, between the Tories and Reform, it's complete and utter bollocks, right? And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, I've spoken to council officers this week, and they have told me that Reform are not even part of their thinking. So all they are taking all of their direction, all of their political direction, all of the political power is with the Conservative Party. That's all they care about. There will be very, very few things that will be allowed to go to full council. Everything will go through cabinet, and the Tories will rubber stamp it. And so they're not even having to sit here and go, right, we need to bring Reform UK into the room. We need to speak to the leader of Reform UK to make sure that they're happy. None of that's happening. They're just cracking on. And part of the reason for that, so the second half of that, is because the outcome of this is that fuck all will happen. So the reason why they will be able to just tick along and tick over and whatever is because the Tories are not going to go to cabinet or to full council and say, we want to acquire the Eastgate Shopping Centre. We want to bring forward a planning application to do this, to do that. I mean, the irony of all ironies is I've listened to Andy Barnes talking about Basildon Town Centre regeneration this week, and he's been talking about the Audi, the Westgate, the hotel, and the resi on that site. I can tell you that in terms of viability, that is the hardest one to deliver. So all of the other things that he's been saying no to, right, which are easier to deliver and get over the line, but he's been saying, no, we can't do any of that. We're going to stick with this one, which he'll never deliver because it's a domino effect and the rest of it all has to happen before that. So what that tells me is they just don't do their homework. They haven't read any of the viability studies. And that speaks to my point. They're not going to do anything. They're just going to tick over, take the money, take their allowances. You know, one of the biggest scandals, right? Let's just have this right. One of the biggest scandals is that they've increased the amount of money that's being paid to councillors, right? Through councillors getting what's called an SRA, a special responsibility allowance. So there's now more cabinet members than there was under me. There's now more committee chairs than there were under me. And what they've done in order to pay for that is they've taken £500,000 away that was being used to pay for the Pride teams, to pay for the crunches, and to pay for charities and voluntary organisations. So again, it's about priorities. Politics is always, the government is to choose. Those people who put their hand up at the AGM to vote for that order paper voted to cut the Pride teams, to cut the crunches, and to take money off of charities in order to pay councillors more cash. Is that going to end well?
Is that a cynical approach to the cancelling of certain things and people being put on more committees? I mean, is it just a money grab thing? Because ultimately, if people do their research, councillors are, in my view, chronically underpaid. But
thank you.
Yeah, well, you know, people who don't like you might say you didn't deserve anything at all. But you know, I don't think councillors get paid a lot for the hours they put in. And people don't really see what goes on behind the scenes, which I think is the virtue of doing a show like this, because no one really understands wholly what a local council does. Some of those people, I dare say the Conservative Party, don't need the extra money. So are you being fair by saying that they've cut these things to give themselves rises in pay?
No, I am. Listen, right, you're right, council. So some guy was on social media slagging me off saying, there's no way you did all those hours and you did all that job for 24 grand a year. You must have been taking brown envelopes and on the take. Well, no, like my household income suffered over the last 2 years. And I can tell you in the last 3 weeks, it's looking rosy again, right? Because I've not got to work 80-hour weeks for £24,000, right? But my point is, like, it is true, councillors don't get paid a lot of money, but you also run the risk of it becoming the preserve of the retired and the elderly, right? If you're only if you're only going to sit there and go, well, you know, he's retired, he doesn't really need the money, so he can be a councillor and a cabinet member. The truth is, again, what you do in those scenarios, and I'm guilty of it, I did it when I was putting all the papers together, you're buying votes, right? So there's some
Mm.
independents there. Eunice Brockman, Mo Larkin, and Val Robbins. They've no fucking loyalty to anybody. They're independents. Why would they? That's their job, to be independents, right? So they don't care if I'm the leader or if Andy Barnes is the leader. They don't care about any of that. They're going to go where the money is. They're going to go with who's offering us the best deal. And so they went and they took the cash and they took the money, right? All right. If I'm offering that in a year's time with more votes and ability to get to 22 quicker than they are, then they'll say yes to me. It's one of those things where, you know, like that you have to use the patronage in order to get people to put their hands up. Everybody understands that and knows it. But at the same time, you then also have lots of conflicts of interest in that order paper. So you've got cabinet members who are also sitting on scrutiny committees. So that is marking your own homework. So I've seen posts today of Andy Barnes saying what a wonderful week he's had because he's beefed up scrutiny. All he's done is he's got his cabinet members to sit on scrutiny committees to mark their own homework. That's like the Secretary of State for Defence also sitting on the DEFRA Select Committee, right? It's a complete nonsense. That's not how it should work. So what should have happened is they should have reduced the number of people in the cabinet, probably down to about 6, and they should have then used the additional people to put into those scrutiny committees, but they couldn't do it because they were all squabbling like rats in a sack about whether or not they really were going to put their hand up and elevate Sam Genet to be the mayor of Basildon. And as I'm told, there was at least 50% of that Tory group who was sat there going, no, why are we doing this? We should be doing a deal with Labour to stop reform from being there. So,
Yeah,
next thing you
I mean,
know,
it's interesting looking at, you know, some of the people that have been put in position, because obviously it's the same old faces, and I do love Kevin Blake, but he messaged me over the weekend telling me that I was wrong in stating that all the cabinet positions went to Tories, and I'm looking at it right now off screen, and it's all Tories. And I look at some of the names on here, and I don't want to be too disparaging because I think you'll have more fun doing that than I will. You know, Kevin Blake. Okay, I love Kevin. Phil Turner. I love Phil Turner. Andrew Schrader, member for planning and infrastructure. Wasn't he in charge of housing before? So I can understand why he's been taken off of that, but now he's in charge of building them, which he probably won't do.
not necessarily
Danny
his
Lawrence.
dad's.
Danny Lawrence, member for culture, sport, and youth. I'm literally going to say nothing about that appointment, nothing at all. Andrew Baggott, Andrew Baggott, member for law and order. Terry Sargent, member for health and inclusion. Now, this one I will be quite disparaging about, Terry Sargent, and I'm not going to be horrible to her majorly, but how long have I been around in Basildon politics, sticking my nose in and getting involved? She pretended the other night that she didn't know me, that she didn't remember me. Now, either that was her trying to be insulting or she's losing the plot. So for her to be in charge of health is another irony, because she might need the health care more than she gives on. And then Alex Myers, I don't really know much about Alex Myers. He seems like a nice guy, but I've never heard him speak, so I've got nothing to say about Alex Myers. This cabinet that's been put together, I think, is about as boring and disappointing as West Ham season the Premier League. And I say that as a disappointed West Ham fan. Minus Kevin Blake and Phil Turner, I don't have much positivity about this at all. What do you think about this, having been across the room from these guys for donkey's years?
Listen, I said in my speech at the AGM, I have known these people for 15 years. They have not had an injection of dynamism, energy, or ideas. They are the same old Tories that governed Basildon Council from 2002 until 2024, minus 2 years in between. Right? They are the reason that our borough looks the way that it does. They are the reason for the managed decline. There's nothing in there, right? I will be disparaging, right? If there was
I knew you would be.
if there were 4 brain cells in that cabinet to rub together, right, you'd be doing well. Right? Now,
Are you being harsh?
like, I sit in these rooms with them, and I will ask them, and I'll challenge them on policy. So for example, Andy Barnes is the cabinet member for finance. He doesn't know the difference between a revenue budget and a capital budget. So you're sitting there and you're going, right, but that doesn't make a blind bit of difference. If we reduce the debt over there, that doesn't make a blind bit. If we're spending money acquiring it, it doesn't make a difference to the day-to-day running of. Doesn't understand it. He's now in charge of finance. Kevin Blake is in charge of service improvement. The last time that man was in the cabinet, he designed and implemented the fortnightly bins, the blue and white IKEA sacks, and he presided over the worst refuse service in the entire country. Fly tipping rates were sky high. Andrew Schrader is the cabinet member for the local plan. Andrew Schrader's daddy got his planning permission for his houses that are now being built by David Wilson Homes in Billericay, millions of pounds for those properties, right? But we can't build any more in Billericay because that might drive down the house price of daddy's land. So therefore, we've got to come out against it. I am perpetually, without any evidence, I am perpetually accused of being in the pockets of developers, of having my hand in the till, right? All of that stuff. And they've never produced a shred of evidence in 15 years. Andrew Schrader's dad has got houses being built now in Billericay. The rumour is one of them's being kept for him and his missus to move into as well at the end of the scheme. And he's still voting on the local plan, even though the number of homes that are being built count towards the local plan number. The last time he was in the cabinet, he was responsible for Morgan Sindall. He downgraded all of their KPIs, their key performance indicators, all of those metrics. And we ended up with a housing system that when we took over was in such chaos, that we've ended up with a C4 regulation. And if it wasn't for the steps that we put in place over the last 2 years, Basildon Council would have had all of its council housing taken off it by the regulator. That was what Andrew Schrader did for 3 years when he was running housing. Phil Turner, cabinet member for housing, concretes all over Gloucester Park, then miraculously gets hold of one of the properties and is renting it out, making a nice sum of money off of it. Now, again, I'm the one who's accused of being bent all the time. And you're like sitting there going, how does that look to the public that this guy's now in charge of housing? You've got law and order. I mean, again, the last time Andy Baggott was in charge of law and order, vehicle thefts were through the roof. Shoplifting was out of control. He sacked the community safety wardens and brought in a team of people that ended up handing the contract back after 6 weeks because it turned out they were a cleaning company, not a security firm, who just successfully won a tender, right? These people are genuinely, they are idiots. Like, I'm not just saying that. I would hope that Reform UK would have brought new people to the table. I don't know a lot of these people, Zoe Hopton or Jeff Noble or David. I don't know these people, right? But give them a go. They might have experience from the private sector. They might have experience from, where they've worked or whatever that could come onto the council and they could make a difference. When people went out and voted in Pitsea North West and St Martin's and Lee Chapel North and Langdon Park and Langdon, they did not vote for these Tories to come back, right? Honestly, and again, you look at those portfolios. What is it that they're putting forward that's different? What's the new big idea? And we're now a week in, and honestly, it's dreadful. One of these officers who was talking to me this week was saying to me, he was like, it's just the one thing we couldn't do, Gav, is keep up with you. Because every day you were coming out and it was like, today, this is the announcement. This is the announcement. This is what we're doing. This is the direction we're going in. This is going to cabinet for. What have you heard from the Billericay Tories in the last week about what they've done?
It reminds me of when I was working for the Conservatives around 2020, 2021, that the only thing they ever put on the table was let's just stop everything.
Yeah.
Let's just not do anything. Let's just pretend that, the place doesn't need improving. And, the proof is in the pudding. I bumped into somebody today who isn't a Labour voter, would have voted for reform, more than likely, nationally. But he and his wife praised you. And they said,
Very
in
sensible.
2 years, they said they've seen drastic improvement, and they credit you for that. And I think it's those people that I relate to, because I'm not a Labour voter myself, yet I was willing to come out and, take a few slaps across the face and a few kicks up the arse for saying that I'd vote for you.
But
And I
critically,
don't.
though, Charlie, and this is the critical point. I get why they would say that, because I was the front and face of it. But in the council, it was my cabinet who was driving that stuff through. So it was Kerry Smith, it was Adele Brown, it was Jessica Power, Jack Ferguson, Emma, Mel, everybody driving this stuff through the whole time, meeting their officers on a weekly basis. Yeah, all right, I was the one on the Facebook Lives or standing up in the council making all the speeches, but they were the ones driving it through. Like, when Andy Baggott was the leader of the council, he came into the council once a fortnight for a meeting with the chief exec, right? Officers will still to this day talk about how he kept a paper diary. He didn't do anything online. He did a paper diary, and no one could get hold of it, right? So and I know I've said this on the podcast before, but every day you're elected, you're closer to the end, right? And so you've got to make every single day count. And if you're losing weeks, if you're in the cycle between cabinet meetings and full council meetings, if you're losing weeks to get stuff done and over the line, there's major problems. I am told, as an example, that the cabinet member for regeneration, Alex Myers, right, he has not yet met the owners of the Eastgate, right? So that deal is up in the air. And there's now a meeting scheduled for next week. That should have been on the Friday morning after the AGM. That should have been the first discussion that the leader and the cabinet member had. 2 weeks is going to have gone by before they're even going to have got into the room with those people. Like, this is what I mean about nothing is going to happen, nothing is going to get done. There's just going to be drift, it's going to be kick it into the long grass, all of those things. That never happened with me, because I would have been on the phone to Jessica Power or to Adele Brown saying, where are we with this? I've not seen a draft report to go to cabinet. I want to see it. Where is it? They haven't got that in this group. And what I've said all along, and I still maintain it to this day, the penny is going to drop with reform, right? It might not be Sam, because he's running around in his frock and he's getting all happy because he's judging bake sales and whatever else he's doing as the mayor of Basildon. But the rest of his group, who are going to be doing the hard yards and the graft, they're the ones who are going to be turning up at the scrutiny meetings, being put under pressure to answer questions and to understand, well, you've put these people in, so what do you think? What's the big ideas? What's the red lines? Full council meetings when they've got to put their hand up and they're going to vote for things. And I've tabled the motion on the 5% cut in the council tax. So let's see how they vote on that at the first meeting. All of those things, right? Reform councillors are going to come to a very, very swift conclusion that the Tories are not delivering change. And when that happens, and they want to move a vote of no confidence in Andy Barnes, and they want this administration to fail, we will honour the result. And the deal that I put to Sam 24 hours before the AGM still stands today. And we will honour that result. And if he wants to take control of the council, and Reform UK want to take control of it, they can. You've got to understand this, right? This is so critically important. Andy Barnes has got to get a budget through that council, right? He has got to save minimum £5.5 million. If he's going to cut the green waste charge, which he's promised that he's going to do, it's in all of his manifesto literature, he's got to find a further £850,000. So already he's at 6.35 million that he's got to save in 1 year. Then on top of that, he said he's going to cut council tax by 1%. That would be 300,000. So that's a 6.6 million that he's got to save. Or if Reform get their way and we get a 5% cut in the council tax, he's got to find £7.5 million. He's then got to put those cuts, which are going to be savage, absolutely, because they're not going to increase their revenue, because they've made it clear that they're not increasing the debt, so they won't increase their revenue. So therefore, they've got to make drastic frontline service cuts. He's then got to get to February, keep all of the show on the road, and in February, he's then got to get 10 people who are mugs enough to go and stick their hand up and vote for £7 million worth of cuts when they don't have to.
Mm.
Good luck.
But the thing is they might not even realise what they're doing. It's like I said
Oh, they
before.
will. I'll make sure they know.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll let them know, but because it's you telling them, they won't listen. And it's
Then they'll lose their
I,
seats. This
I
is what happened to UKIP. They are doing the exact. Kerry Smith made that speech.
yeah,
You heard it.
yeah, I
This
did
is
hear it. Yeah, yeah.
this is what UKIP did 10 years
Mm,
ago. They were going to be the force for change. They fell into the Billericay Tory trap, and then they started losing their seats and they started losing their support. And Kerry realised it, came out of it, built his own brand up as an independent, and he beat Reform on the 7th of May, and he won his
mm,
county seat. That's where we are now with
mm.
reformers. They've got to make a choice. Are they just going to carry on being an extension of the Conservative Party, which is all they are at this moment in time, or are they going to grow some balls and go out there
They're
and do
they're
something?
they're actually in a good spot when you think about it, because they can just say, "Look, the Tories were in control. We propped them up, but they were making the decisions. And when it comes to the next election, they can say, look, we've learned from them, and we can progress further." But the problem that I've got with this is that I'm looking at the scrutiny committee chairman and women. Although saying that, it's mostly one woman.
There's only 3
Zoe,
out of 23 that are women.
yeah, well, Zoe Hopton's on 2 scrutiny committees. Councillor Gardner, who well, doesn't know how to tuck in a
MIA, isn't
shirt.
he?
Well, he don't know how to tuck in a shirt. I don't know how he's going to scrutinise housing. Looks like he needs a house. Finance, Procurement and Efficiency Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Suave, no idea. And then Regeneration Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Brockman. I mean, fuck me.
We're
Uh,
going to have some fun,
the,
aren't they, Charlie?
well, the Tories are gonna just wipe the floor with these people, and it's because they've underestimated the task ahead of them. It's all very well, and I've said this many times before to people. It's very, very easy to go out and campaign politically and say, you're going to do this and you're going to stop that. And everything sounds fantastic when you put on a local leaflet, you're going to stop the boats when there's no rivers or lakes or seas near Basildon, or you're going to put police on the streets when you've got no power to do so. But then when you get into it, it's like, oh, right, okay, there's actually some work to do here that we didn't really account for, because we both agree on this. The Conservatives are just going to stagnate, sit still, do nothing, maybe move to the side a little bit because they've got an itch, and they'll move back again and do nothing else. I'm just really disheartened by this, and I guess the next question I should put to you is: you've been here before, but this time seems a little bit more trying, like predictably more trying for the next 12 months for you in opposition, because you're going to see a lot of hard work that you and your team have done going down the drain, and you're going to have a front row seat.
Well, let me deal with that point. But before I do, let me just say this thing that Reform think that they're sitting in a really golden position right now is actually laughable, because I come back to it. South of the 127, the Billericay Tories are hated. They were voted 5th in many of these seats, 4th and 3rd in all of the others. They never even finished 2nd in seats where they're normally strong. Everybody south of the 127 knows that the only reason the Billericay Tories are in is because Reform UK have propped them up. And if there's anybody left who doesn't know that, trust me, I'm going to be knocking on their door and delivering leaflets to every single one of them multiple times between now and the first Thursday in May next year, to make it absolutely clear to those people that it was Reform who backed them. You vote Reform, you get the Billericay Tories. Gav was right, everyone else was wrong. That's the message that I'm going to be putting out. And every single person is going to know that in this borough. I'm the one who's sitting here in quite a strong position, because both my political opponents, the Conservatives and Reform, are going to be blamed for everything that goes right and wrong on that council over the next 12 months. And when that happens and Restore come in and start eating up some of that Reform vote, and Labour get themselves a new leader, and we'll come on to talk about this later on, there's going to be only one place left for people to go. And it ain't going to be the Tories, it ain't going to be Reform. So the Labour
It's going to
vote...
be Restore.
But look at the Labour vote. I keep talking about it. The Labour vote did not move. In fact, the Labour vote in many seats went up. It went up, not down. So that puts me in a very, very strong position in 12 months' time, when those two start eating each other alive. And this is what Reform didn't get their head around quickly enough, that they should have understood that they are going to take all of the pain and they're not going to get any of the gain off of this deal. On the other point that you raised, listen, I know because again there was a big regeneration conference 2 weeks ago, or the week after the election, called UK Reef, and that's where all of the investors go to talk about regeneration and all the rest of it. All of them went and spoke to the council officers, and they all said we're pulling out.
Oh
They
wow.
said we know that without Gavin, this isn't going to happen anymore. And if you start going off and saying we're going to do Langdon and we're going to do Pitsea and we're going to do Wickford, and you haven't got a team of officers big enough to be able to do all of that, this is going to stagnate and this isn't going to go anywhere. And looking at your council now, you've got Sam Genet saying he's against everything going on in the town centre. You've got Andy Barnes saying, no, we love it all. We just don't like this and we don't like that. And the whole vision piece, the whole domino effect that I've talked about before is going to fall. The guys who put £172 million in, we've been courting them for the last year to get them to put a further 200 million in to develop the site around the Robin Cinema and what is currently Great Oaks, where the DWP are currently sitting. And huge plans that were going to come forward. We hadn't announced them yet, but we had 200 million lined up to do that. They've pulled out of that deal. They're not putting that money on the table now. So that's all going to fall apart, right? But I'm quite zen about it on the grounds that I don't know how much more repetitive I could have been. We made the election a referendum on the regeneration, and yet the Labour vote went up. But the Reebok Classic vote came out for reform, and they decided that this was going to be a campaign about small boats. And I'm yet to find any small boats appearing on the lake at Northlands Park or anything else. But they've decided to make it about a national campaign, and that's totally fine.
Well, it works, and you've got to give them credit for that.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's impressive.
The Reebok Classic crowd, that's a good one. That's a it's a bit harsh, but yeah, I'll give it you. So
when people are going into the ballot box asking the clerks why Nigel's name is not on the ballot paper, right?
But this is why we need to do this show, because people don't understand, and it's not their fault that they don't understand. It's politicians' fault that they don't understand what's really going on. And I think that even though you said a moment ago that this was a referendum on the regeneration plan, it also goes to show how important national picture is, because Starmer's very disliked. The Labour Party nationally are more or less hated. And, well, I don't see much positive about Labour online unless it's a Labour Party member. Well, all right. Well, all right. Well, let's put it this way. When I walk through the town, when I walk around, and I've been stopped by people talking about our last two interviews, our last two shows, they've all said they'd rather vote reform, they'd rather vote for Restore Britain, but they liked you. Your personal appeal is great, but how far will that go when the next year goes by? We'll talk about Andy Burnham's chances in Makerfield in a minute, but if Labour's national fortunes continue going downward, how does that affect you and your group on Basildon Council?
Well, again, I think it's also important to understand that Labour are polling second nationally. We are still above the Tories. We are still above the Greens. We're still above all the others. And
but that ain't hard, mate.
But you say that, but the Tories have just got control of Basildon Council.
I mean the Tories are never going to win national trust again for a very long time, and beating the Greens is, I mean, there's nothing to write home about.
Well, the Greens are the reason why Sam Genet is still in his seat, because if 400 people hadn't gone out and voted Green in St Martin's, he wouldn't be there. My point is, if you look at the Salvation poll that came out, I think it was not this Thursday, the previous Thursday, that said if Andy Burnham was the Prime Minister, what would be your national voting intention? And Labour went to 31% in the poll. And that was, I think, Reform were at 26, 27%. So Labour, for the first time since the general election, went ahead of them. Now, of course, that's all well and good when you're seen as the king of the north, when you're the outsider and you're the new kid coming in. And I should declare, I know Andy, I've worked a little bit with him in the past. But my point is, there is a hell of a long way to go. I remember in 2012, I won my seat in 2012. Cameron and Osborne got an absolute shellacking. Everybody battered them. No way can Cameron win a general election. 3 years later, he won a majority. I
Mm.
remember being stood in the Sporting Village in 2019. We just got control of the council back. Theresa May finished fifth under the Tories in that set of local elections that were held around the same time as the EU referendum. So the EU elections. 6 months later, the Tories went and won an 80-seat majority in a general election, right? No one can sit here and say what's going to happen in a general election in 2029. So much is going to change. Well, there'll be a different president in America. Can Nigel Farage keep all of this up? And where has Nigel Farage been recently, right? The minute he gets put under a little bit of scrutiny over his 5 million crypto nonsense, he's gone under, right? Because the questions are pretty tough. And I think this is scratching the surface of what is about to come out about him. So he's not necessarily going to be the golden child in 3 years' time. And getting this kind of, this anger and this division to carry on for 3 years, it's tiring listening to it and seeing it.
Do you not think people have got the right to be angry about the state of the country, though?
Yeah, I do. But then at the same time, I think sometimes in politics, we politicians and the kind of the Westminster bubble, I think sometimes we can over-egg it. I think back to like yesterday as an example, right? Most people just were quite happy to have a barbecue, have a couple of pints and watch the Champions League final and see their family and friends. They weren't sitting there going, how many immigrants came over on boats yesterday? I mean, if you went online, everybody was saying it, right? But most people were just sat there going,
they might have done once the football ended.
Well, yeah, because they're probably livid. But my point is are things difficult? Yes, they are, right? Was Tony Blair wrong in a lot of what he said in his essay last week, in my view? No, but was the argument that kind of inequality and people's finances don't really matter because it will all be replaced by AI, right? No, it wasn't. Is what Burnham is saying, speaking to a really kind of pissed off generation of people that, again, Charlie, right? I hear this all the time as a Labour politician in Basildon. People sit there and say to me in Basildon, and say, my whole family have been Labour. My nan and granddad were Labour. My mum and dad were Labour. They'd be turning in their grave if they knew I was voting for anyone but Labour. But you ain't the Labour Party anymore. You're too woke. You're too this. You're too that. Actually, what you're hearing from Andy Burnham is a politician saying, I want the Labour Party to be more like the Labour Party again. You heard him talking to the guy who tried to doorstep him this week about what would you do about deportations? And he said, I'd send them back. Absolutely right. If they've committed crimes, it would send them back.
Yeah.
So that danger for the right is that you kind of had an easy ride with Corbyn and Starmer and Ed Miliband for the last 14 years. If you end up with a situation where you've kind of got a real heir to Blair, who understands that individual ambition and compassion for your community are not opposites, but are partners in progress, and actually that's the way to build cohesive communities, the third way that was so successful for the New Labour project. If you end up with a Labour politician in charge and Prime Minister who's enacting some of that, I think the right might find that it's not as easy a scenario for them as they've had over the last 15 years.
Well, Burnham is one man, and I'm going to take on board what you just said, but I'm going to add a little bit of a caveat to it or a bit of nuance to it by saying that if he doesn't get the support of the party, then he can't fulfill what you just said about, if people come here illegally, deportations, we'll send them back. Because I know, and I think deep down, if we're being really honest, that many people in the Labour Party, especially the parliamentary party, would not be in favour of commentary like that, because if they were, they've got nothing to complain about when it comes to restore and reform. So you are going to get a lot of people in the Labour Party that are woke, that are extreme left, and say, nah, we don't believe that. We believe that, all asylum seekers are welcome, all illegal immigrants are welcome, all the boat people are welcome. And that is a difficulty for an incoming Labour leader if he does win and he does take leadership of the Labour Party. I mean, if he loses the Makerfield by-election, his career is over, right? So it's a big gamble for him.
Yeah, it's a gamble, and as he said, it's a risk he's willing to take. But I also think that analysis of the Labour Party is 5 years out of date. Genuinely, right?
Of course it ain't.
No, it is, because when I go to, not just, I speak at different CLPs. I don't just go to my own constituency Labour Party. those people that you were describing who were saying no, never, no deportations, let everybody in, no borders and the rest of it, those people fucked off to the Greens. They were never Labour. They came and infiltrated the Labour Party during the Corbyn years, but they were never Labour. The Labour Party believes very clearly in border control and in fair borders. You know, I'm somebody, as I've said on this podcast, I'm a Blairer. When Blair was advocating digital ID in 2005 as a means to stopping illegal immigration, he was right? Digital ID, we all do it every day. We look into
All
our
right, all right,
pots
all
and
right, all right.
phone.
I remember that interview that you did. It was with Paxman, right, on the BBC. I remember the interview you did. Now, if you just because many people will say to you, and I believe this as well. Well, don't let them in the first place. Why they need digital ID? Tell them just to fuck off. Because ultimately, we've got ID, we've got passports. If you've got a modern passport, they've got a digital thing inside them now anyway.
Mhm.
What's the difference? I mean, like, because I'm very cynical about this. I personally think block the English Channel with a few frigates, send them back to France. The French won't do fuck all about it. They're not going to start a war over a few boat people, right? And the problem on that front is solved. The bigger issue is the fact that you've got too much legal immigration when you don't need it. You don't need all
So,
these people coming in. I mean, the whole GDP argument and, giving people a better life, etc., etc. Like, if these people were so fantastic and we need them to add to our culture and, our diverse workforce, why don't they save their own countries? It
but
makes no
my
sense to me.
argument, so there's a few different parts of that, but let's just take the Shabana Mahmood model, right, which has been hugely successful, right? I'm sorry, but you look at the net migration figures, right? It's been hugely successful. Why has that been successful? Because actually, if you was to take all of the people that are in asylum hotels or all of the people that are in asylum HMOs, and you were to put them in Wembley Stadium right now, Wembley Stadium would be 2/3 empty. Right? We get all vexed about this issue about hotels and all the rest of it. There's about 30,000 people in the country in that scenario. The bigger problem when it comes to illegal immigration, and I am somebody who have great sympathy for her argument that around 1 in 30 people you encounter now are non-British nationals. They've come to this country for immigration, and that is a seismic change that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. That makes people want to think more about how you can integrate all of those sorts of things. What she's done around going after student visas and after social care, the social care sector, so that if you come here to work in social care, before under the Tories, you were able to bring all of your family and everybody over on those visas. She's cut all of that to stop that from happening. I also think what needs to go hand in hand, and I had hoped that the Labour government were going to do this, and I'd hoped that post-Brexit, government of any stripe was going to do it. We as a country have not had any radical discussions about skills. So
Mm.
one of the biggest problems in our country, and all that report that came out this week from Alan Milburn about not in education, employment, and training. There are more people not in education, employment, and training in Basildon than anywhere else in Essex. If you are a 16-year-old kid in Basildon right now, and I'm talking about south of the 127 in the new town, you have such an unstable next 20, 30, 40 years ahead of you. Your access to the jobs market will be, flitting between jobs, 6 months on, 6 months off. You've got barely any chance of getting on the property ladder. The private rented sector is well out of your reach. Unless you can go and get yourself a missus and you can get yourself a kid and apply to get a council house, you've really got no chance of being able to move out of home with mum and dad. We have 10,000 24 to 34-year-olds living at home with mum and dad. Sam Genet is one of them, right? Can't afford to get out and buy a house, but it's true, right? That's an example of what's going on in our borough. And we are not creating skilled jobs that enable our people to be able to go and move up the ladder. And it's so easy for employers. I used to talk to them in Basildon all the time. These employers who were just like, we're just bringing labour from abroad. Your
Mm.
British people don't want to work. They don't want to put the graft in. They don't want to do this. Now, again, I don't believe that's true, right? Because most people that I speak to and I see are hardworking, they graft, they do all the right things. But it has become too easy to be on welfare, far too easy to be on welfare. And again, the reforms that Starmer and Pat McFadden are bringing in on that, I think broadly, whether you're a Tory, whether you're Labour, whether you're Reform or Restore or Liberal, we should all be agreeing to them, because that is about getting people back into work. But alongside all of that, we need a massive skill strategy. If you had that, and these businesses were not going out saying we're just going to bring foreign labour in, it would change it. But going all the way back to my original point, I think the right are in for a shock. I genuinely do think the right are in for a shock, because I think that you are going to come up against the Labour leader, the likes of which you have not seen since Blair. So Brown was easy to caricature, Ed Miliband was, Jeremy Corbyn was, Keir Starmer was. The Labour Party's moved further and further to the left under their tenures. I don't think that's what's going to happen under Burnham, and I think you're going to end up where those. You asked me, are people right to feel angry? Well, they are, because a hard day's graft and a fair day's wage is not enough to live on at the moment for too many of our people. And what Burnham is trying to do is think about ways to sort that out. I saw it this week, right? Was it a 13% increase in energy bills?
Mm.
We should be telling those energy companies to fuck off. Honestly, we need a government to be sat there going, fuck off, or we're windfall taxing you. And we're going to take all those fucking profits that you're all milking off of this, and we're going to get that back into the front line, and we're going to start making sure that bills are cheaper for ordinary people.
I'd make it real simple and just encourage people just not to pay.
And you can't do
En
that,
masse. Well, I
mean,
mean,
have their electricity car.
Well, I'm sure you can fiddle it.
It's not a solution, is it? Well, the solution needs to be
I'm just saying,
the energy sector needs to massively reform.
Money's always the bottom line. If the government was to windfall tax them and people just stop paying their energy bills en masse, I'm sure they'd soon change their mind. But I'm not really advocating for windfall taxes. I think tax is theft personally, but it just is. Like you just said there, if you don't like, we don't like what you're doing, therefore we're going to take all your money. It's theft. But I'm not as optimistic as you are about Andy Burnham, naturally, because I'm on the right, and I believe that people will never forgive Labour for some of their mistakes. And I think that just like Brexit was 10 years ago, the next election is still going to be about immigration, and that's because the politicians in Westminster don't listen. Many people will say that their life has gotten harder because of immigrants. Now, that people can make an argument against that. I'm sure you'd like to, but I think there's a lot of credence to that. You said about the lack of skills. I mean, not too long ago, if I ordered a cab, I'd get picked up by Steve. I don't know who Abdullah is, and I'm not trying to be lemon. I'm just calling it how it is. If I order a pizza, I'm not getting it delivered by someone I went to school with or someone that I know from around the way. I'm getting it delivered by somebody who's fresh off the boat. And I may be generalising, and you may think, again, I'm being unfair because I'm looking at your face. But if you go around and talk to people, that's how they feel. Most people will talk the same way that I do about immigration and the way it affects them. And they look around and they think, I don't recognise this place anymore. And most people will blame Labour. When you factor in as well, which is always, the alarm call for people on the right, that they will always be angry about grooming gangs, and they always blame Labour administrations and Labour councils for letting that go on. I don't think that a fresh lick of paint, Andy Burnham, is actually going to change Labour's fortunes that much. I think that it's done for Labour next general election. And if I'm wrong, we'll find out. But I genuinely don't see how Labour turn this around, given that everything that politicians do is too little too late. I mean, look, I used to be a Conservative, right? How many elections went by where the Conservatives would say they control immigration and bring numbers down? 5 elections, 5 different manifestos, they said that. They never did it. Labour are doing it now because they know that the right wing have got the march. They know the momentum is with people like Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe, which is why they've now got to come out and say, you can snigger, but it's right. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. They know that that's why they've got to change tact a little bit and say, oh, yeah, maybe we should put a few curbs on immigration. Maybe we should kick a few people out of hotels. Maybe we should send a few people back. Not too long ago, the Labour Party were crying about the Rwanda plan, but now they want to deport people. It's only because of the right wing that Labour are changing.
Right. Let's just get a few things straight. Labour were not crying
about
the Rwanda plan because we wanted to deport people. Labour were crying about the Rwanda plan because it was a stupid plan that was costing the taxpayers hundreds of millions of pounds and wasn't deporting anybody. 70,000 people have been deported under this Labour government, right? So when you think about what did Suella Braverman do with Rwanda, she deported no one. What have the Labour Party done since 2024? Deported 70,000 people. So when you go back to the other point around immigration, how many small boats were entering our country before 2016?
Well, I know that it wasn't in the news cycle, that's for sure. And I know you're going to blame Brexit for this. I know that we've had this discussion in private, and I actually agree with you on this, surprisingly, to many. I do agree that Brexit hasn't worked out the way that it was sold to us, and we have to live with that. But uh, people still want that outcome.
You can have Brexit, right? I'm not suggesting that you can't have Brexit. I'm suggesting that would it not have been a smarter move to negotiate a returns agreement with the EU as part of that deal? Because here's the thing,
Well,
right?
well, Cameron did try to negotiate with Angela Merkel and the rest of the European Union before the referendum was called.
He tried to
Now,
negotiate an emergency break on benefits. He never even
from,
negotiated on immigration.
well, that's a deterrent. If you don't give people access to the money, they won't come. But
Or you
I'll
give
give
people,
you.
or you introduce work permits so that it's harder to work here than it is in the EU, because it's harder to work in France than it is in the UK. That's part of the reason why people continue to the UK, because it's easier to get a job here. You've just described the Deliveroo, the Just Eat driver. You can't do that in France because of the way their work permit system works over there. So there are things that government can do. There are things that people could have done. But my point is, if you are going to sit here and say the French should take these people back, why should they? They'll be sitting there going,
Whoa,
well,
whoa, 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 whoa! Hold on.
in the EU, yes, they're under the Dublin Accord. We would have taken them back, but now the Britain has left the EU, so it doesn't need to
Come
happen.
on. If that were the case, we wouldn't have had the Brexit referendum centred around immigration in the first place if the French were doing what they should do. Let's be honest, the French, and I've seen evidence of this, they're shipping people off in coaches to the coast and letting them have a free run at the sea to cross over to England. It's completely unfair. We're paying them to stop it. They're not stopping it. Like, we're being mugged off left, right, and centre. And I don't care if the French don't like it if we send them back. Fuck them. Bye bye. And I say the same thing to the French as well. Fuck you as well, because it's your fault they're here. You know, every girl that gets attacked, every girl that gets raped, every hotel we pay for is because the French have taken our money and done a run with it. Why should we tolerate that? Why should you put people in danger because you want to appear to follow the rules when the people you're inviting in don't follow them themselves?
Well, look, I don't know how any of this is related to the Makerfield by-election, but
Because
we could do
you
it. We could
think
do
that
an
you
entire. We could
mentioned
do an
that
entire
Burnham was going
podcast
to.
just.
We could, but you mentioned Burnham was going to be tough on immigration, and the right have got a surprise. I don't think that the right
No,
do have a surprise.
my point, Charlie, about Burnham is not because unlike you, I don't think the world just exists solely around the topic of immigration and politics. I think that
Oh,
there are
fuck
more
off!
things.
That's not how I think.
I
It's
think
just
there
a
are
big
more
topic.
things in life, and my point is, I don't believe that people. So again, when I look at the wards in Basildon in this election, one of the things that is really, really apparent is that we have real pockets of immigrant communities, and they tend to be in our poorer communities, our poorer neighbourhoods. But there is an increased density. So for people who are living in those areas, and I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. In and around Plumley, Stokefeld, that area of Pitsea Northwest, we have a high concentration of immigrant families, right, and non-British national families. And they are mixed in with people who are themselves on low incomes or whatever it might be from British families. They have seen a drastic, rapid change in their local areas. And when they're walking around, they're sitting there going, hang on a minute, that house now is a non-British national, that house is a non-British national, that. And so it appears that things are going really rapidly and fast. Actually, across the borough of Basildon, it's still 85% white British, right, in terms of our demographic. But I understand if you're living in some of those areas, it's been a rapid change and people have not had the opportunity to integrate and all of those things. But my point is that I don't believe people care about the nationality of their neighbour, providing there is a level playing field and everybody has got the opportunity to make a hard day's graft and a fair day's pay, support their family and give them what they want. Most people just want to be able to keep the wall from the door, provide for their family, get a couple of weeks holiday a year, go to football, have a pint, do all of those things. And that's what Andy Burnham is talking about. And when Andy Burnham is saying that people just want to have a few quid in their back pocket for a few pints on a Saturday night, they're not asking for the world. They're not asking for an AI technological revolution to come into their front room, the way Tony was talking about it last week in his essay. But what they want is for their pound to go further, right? I think that you have not heard a Labour politician for a very, very long time talk about things that really resonate with people. And in a way, and again, I know this, Andy is the best communicator in the Labour movement right now, and he has been for a very, very long time. He will be able to talk to the public and be able to talk to that demographic of people that have been susceptible to the Nigel Farage message for the last 15 years in a way that no Sir Keir Starmer or Ed Miliband or Jeremy Corbyn has been able to talk to them. And it will be really interesting, I think, to see, and I ain't got a crystal ball, I'm not going to sit here and try and predict what the general election looks like in 3 years' time. I think if Andy wins the Makerfield by-election, if he wins it comfortably, I think he's Prime Minister by the summer. And I think if he then gets in, it could be a very, very interesting dynamic, particularly if Restore do start eating into the Reform vote, which, looking at what might happen in Makerfield, what do you think? Do you think Restore are going to do some damage?
100%. 100%. Do you know what? I'm not a massive fan of arrogance in politics, which is probably antithetical to the whole thing because one, everyone's arrogant, and I'm talking to you. But but I think Reform have kind of got this old school Tory mentality where they believe that they're born to rule, and I can't stand that. And it does make me quite sick to think that these people in Reform just believe they're owed it. And it's like Restore should stand out the way because they're going to ruin the vote, and they should unite the right. And it's like I don't think people in Reform actually understand why Restore have gotten popular. It's because Nigel Farage has said one thing on a Tuesday, changed his mind by the Thursday, gone back to the thing he said on Tuesday by Friday, and fucked it all off by Sunday. And that inconsistency is what has irked a lot of people. And the drama with Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe, people accuse Rupert of using it as a vanity project and getting his own back because Farage and Zia Yusuf tried to get him locked up under false pretenses. I mean, look, even if that were true and you say, right, okay, that's one of his motivations, let's put that to one side for a moment. Do the things that Restore Britain say actually resonate with a lot of people? And I think we have to accept that they do. And I think that as time goes on, it may come to pass that the differences on the right wing of British politics may put Labour, Andy Burnham into number 10. That might come true because if Restore were to, this is the thing about Reform, they believe that if Restore weren't involved, they'd get all of those Restore voters. I don't think that's true. I think that if there was no Restore on the ballot paper, those Restore voters would stay at home and Andy Burnham would win anyway. So if you look at the poll numbers and you work out the attitudes of some of these people and why Restore Britain voters are angry with Reform and everybody else in politics, yeah, I think there'll be a thorn in many a side. Actually, it may be Reform side for the time being, but we'll see what happens. You never know; things might go drastically further wrong, and Restore might become the saving grace of the UK. Who knows?
I think last weekend was really interesting watching Farage on social media. I mean, he was clearly rattled by Restore, and that whole kind of narrative of vote Restore and you get Labour. I think just made him sound like the same old politics. It made him sound like me. So if you vote Reform, you
he
get
did.
the Tories.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was that thing of all political parties sound like that, and new Reform was supposed to be something different and new. So I think that was an interesting sort of dynamic, really, in terms of the campaign. And what I'm hearing, I haven't been out in Makerfield yet, but what I'm hearing from a lot of people is that Reform are hemorrhaging support to Restore,
Mm.
and it is splitting. But I make you right. People forget this. Andy Burnham, I think it was 2021 when he was last elected the mayor of Manchester. There are 10 boroughs like the size of Basildon in the Greater Manchester area. Not only did he win every single borough, Andy won every single ward in
Wow.
every single borough. So he is a phenomenally liked politician in that part of the world. And kind of the post-COVID King of the North stuff with him standing up to Boris and all that over the kind of the lockdowns and the money and all that kind of stuff. That's only kind of put him on an even bigger pedestal.
Mm.
So I think he'll win. How that translates to the rest of the country after that is obviously something that is to be decided. What do you think of Streeting? Because obviously he is suggesting that he's going to force some kind of a leadership contest. What do you make of him?
He comes across to me a bit of a damp squib. I'm not too sure about him. I mean, I'm sure he's intelligent, but the thing that will let him down, even if he is extremely competent and has leadership qualities, is his connections to Peter Mandelson. And that will be his undoing, because that's what the opposition will talk about. That's what the press will talk about. And I think it will just tarnish him in a way that maybe he doesn't deserve. But at the end of the day, that's the way it goes. I don't have much confidence in Wes Streeting if you want to compare him to Andy Burnham. I think Andy Burnham is a cut above, and I will admit that. I don't think he's a terrible politician at all, because obviously he wins and he especially on the code thing, he stood up for the right thing, in my opinion. But Wes Streeting, no, not overly keen. I know that you know him. I don't know how well you know him, but I know you know him. What do you think of him? Do you think he's got a chance if he stands against Andy Burnham? Be interesting to watch.
I mean, the bookies and the kind of internal Labour polling would suggest that whomever Burnham was to stand against, he would handsomely, comfortably beat them. And so I suspect that it would be very, very difficult for Wes. And I agree that there are some things that have gone on sort of nationally that will unfairly tarnish him. I think Wes is a phenomenal politician. I think he's done a great job with health to reduce the waiting lists in the way that he has. But it might come too soon for him, I think, with the way things are at the moment. And it might be that his time comes in 3 or 4 years' time if Labour lose the next general election or whatever happens. I mean, even if Andy is Prime Minister, you only get 10 minutes in the job now and then you're out. And that seems to be the way it works. So whether we are sitting here thinking that, there'll be a change of leader in 10 years' time, or it's more likely to be the next 2 or 3 years, isn't it, the way things are going. So it might come too early for him, but I rate Wes. I think he's really good. I think either Wes or Burnham, I think, would be strong opponents for Farage. I certainly think you've got to think that the 29 general election is probably going to be the most visible general election in terms of TV debates and radio debates and TikTok debates and all that kind of stuff. So whoever is out there doing it, you've got to have a really strong brand, and you've really got to be able to play on that. And Burnham's got that. I think Wes could develop it. And obviously Farage has got that, and he's very, very strong on it. I don't think Kemi Badenoch has got that at all, to be honest. I don't think she's got any sort of real presence other than she appears really angry all the time. Every time she is on telly. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But let's go back to Basildon. Let's bring it back to the locals. Have you been rehearsing? Because I am told now that if you are to attend any future council meetings, you will be required to sing a verse and a chorus of the national anthem.
Well, it's been a long time since I was a gigging performer, but I might have to get some of my vocal training back in action again, and do a few riffs and runs. I'm not entirely sure why Sam Genet wants us to sing the national anthem, and I'm not saying that because I'm anti-monarchist. I just don't think it works in that chamber with the hostility that there is in that room to get everybody up to say God Save the King, when I dare say half of your group are Republicans anyway. Um, I think you are as well, actually. If I can throw you under the bus there, um, like, what's the point of it? I mean, I kind of understand it in a way. He wants to be this kind of like unifying figure, and he's taken the whole, um, what is he, the first man of Basildon? He's got a direct link. He's a
First
representative
citizen.
of the first citizen of Basildon, and he's got he represents the crown apparently on. So I mean, mate, I don't know. I know that I made jokes with him about making him king of Basildon if he'd have taken your deal, but I think maybe this is a little bit self-indulgent in his position. I mean, what was the last meeting at the AGM? Was there a request that you all stand when he entered the room or something like that? And I thought to myself, because I wasn't actually in the room when it started, I was in an overflow room because it was busy, and I was like, he made you all stand. Like, since when? Since when? And what for? It mind blown me really a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that whole giving standing ovations to the chief exec and the mayor and the monitoring officer, and I mean, I'll say, fuck off. Like, I'm just not doing any of it. Like, it's bad enough. And I've been utterly consistent at this. So people can contact David Burton Sampson, they can contact Alan Davis. I have ridiculed both of them for wearing those stupid pajamas that they come out in. Nonsense, rubbish. Like, we are all one amongst equals as elected councillors. None of us are, and I say that having been the leader of the council for 5 years, right? You are in that chamber, you are one amongst equals. Your vote
Yeah,
counts.
go on.
It does. It counts exactly the same
You
as the
you you have you
others.
have never felt like you're on par with any of the other politicians in that room. You've believed you're a cut above. Don't give it all that now that you're out of office.
I'm not talking intellectually here. I'm just talking about
Oh, right, okay,
being
right, yeah, 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 yeah,
being
yeah.
being on a par. Your vote counts exactly the same. But honestly, like, standing up and then we're all going to have a sing song. And apparently, if we do that, the potholes are going to get filled in, and the street lights are going to stay on, and the regeneration
Yeah,
is going to prosper because we've all sung "God
yeah.
Save the King." I mean,
The homeless will be housed, and your
and,
council
and
tax will not. It won't be 5%, guys. It'll be 10.
we're stopping council tax basically because
I'll,
we've
I'll,
all
I'll vote for
sung "God
that.
Save the King."
I'll,
Yeah.
I'll vote for that. I'll sing it twice.
Do you know what though, Charlie? Like, honestly, when I was at university, I refused to be in like the student union and like the when you do a politics degree, you're kind of always courted to be in the kind of the Labour politics students and all that. I never fucking did it because it was just performative crap the whole time,
Yeah.
and that is all this is, right? It's like, let's all sing the national anthem. Why? Because we're going to try and take a video if there's a councillor who's not singing it so we can put it out on social media that they must hate the king. Like, fuck off, honestly. Like, get in the room, debate the motions, debate the policy, get on with it, and put it to the test. This whole
So,
thing, and I go on.
are you gonna refuse to sing it then?
I'm not saying I'm going to refuse to sing it. I mean, listen, if we're stood there and they're all singing the national anthem like they do on Remembrance Sunday or whatever you do, but again, who's going to be singing it? Like, is it a cappella?
Probably. Yeah.
So are we going off of him? Is he the conductor now as well as the
No, no, I
mayor
mean,
and
this is this is
Christmas
this is
tree?
making me cringe thinking about it now because someone's got to start the song off.
Exactly. Or are they going to wheel in a speaker and just like
Well,
hit Spotify to play it? Like,
you know
what
what
the
would end
fuck?
it completely is if he starts singing it and everyone just looks around the room embarrassed and does nothing.
Does he know the
He'll
words?
never do it again, huh?
Does he know the words?
I hope so. He's called it on now.
Are we even sure he does? Yeah, and so yeah. I mean, again, it's all nonsense because
Have your group texted you about this, saying what is he on about, and have any of the Conservatives been in touch to say we ain't doing that either?
oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I've had councillors from all sides who've been in touch, being like, I think this is a joke, to be honest. um, but again, yeah, listen. Last time it was a standing ovation. This time it's "God Save the King." There'll be somebody getting the next one. Do you know what I mean? We'll all have to, bow at him as he walks in, or it'll be
You'll get a 21 gun salute at the next council meeting
and probably there'll be like a
to
guard of
himself.
honour from the Royal Anglian Regiment will turn up to do a guard of honour or something. Like, honestly, like it's just that kind of stuff. I mean, you said it earlier on. That one job I would never ever want on that council is to be the mayor. Like, it's not of any interest. There's no political power in it. You're gagged in those meetings. You can't even talk or say anything. And again, this is what it's about. Because he's been muzzled, to use your dog analogy, right? Because he's been muzzled by the Tories, he's searching for relevance already in these meetings. And so we're having this whole kind of kumbaya sing song.
I do feel kind of sorry for him, because I think the whole the kumbaya sing song, as you put it, is all we can offer now. And as much as I believe that Sam Genet has a hell of a lot to learn, but I do think he has good campaigning instincts. I think he's actually very good at it. And I've said this to him as well, but I don't think he's got the right aptitude to get the job done, which is probably why he took this mayoralty, because it feeds his ego and it makes him the centre of attention. But I would have thought, given all of the campaigning he did and all of the things that he said and all the carnage that he caused around the borough for different groups of people, that he would have really gone for the deal. And I keep going over it, because I think you and I have got the same mentality, where it's like, if there's an opportunity here for us, we're going to grab it with both hands. We're not going to let it slip through. We're not going to, pretend that this doesn't mean anything to us, because I think a lot of people will probably reflect on voting for Sam and say, well, we thought we was going to get a lot more than this, and all he's doing now is platitudes and opening a few shops. I mean, he was doing that before he got elected. I think he was going around, turning up to everyone. I mean, if you were opening an envelope, he would turn up and take a picture with you. So it's, now he's got the perfect opportunity to carry on doing it. But, I do wonder where he gets his advice from, because
Do you know
as much
what?
as he doesn't trust me, which is fair enough, but because I'm objectively critical, and I would be objectively critical of you. I mean, I've not been shy in coming forward with you during these chats or in the past as mates, and even before we were mates. Not shy in coming forward, but at the end of the day, I wish that he'd have done more with his opportunity, and I think that in a year's time he's going to be knackered, really.
Do you know what? It was actually a member, not a councillor, but a member of the Conservative Party, who actually said to me, if me, Sam, and Kerry were all on the same team, we'd have finished the Tory party off for good in Basildon. And
True.
when you sit there and you think about it, you think between the three of us, we would have done it, and we would have completely. You think the majority of all of Reform's votes are south of the 127, seats are south of the 127. We would have been able to just wipe out the Tories completely, make it a completely sort of Tory-free zone, and we would have been able to work together. The other thing that is just patently obvious is, we're an hour odd into this podcast, right? We're talking about Sam, we're talking about Reform, we're just not talking about Andy Barnes. And this is one of those things which I think we're going to have to get used to. On the one hand, Barnes won't care, because he'll be sat there going, I'm the leader of the council, I can do whatever I want and I'll get away with it. But on the other hand, I think there'll be a lot of people who will be sat there going, so why is Andy Barnes the leader of the council when the main protagonists and the main players in this council are Gavin Callaghan, Sam Genet, Kerry Smith? Why are they not running the show?
Ultimately, I think it will just be you and Kerry now, because Sam cannot do too much with his voice anymore. And I know he'll try, but I'm not seeing any movement from the other Reform councillors, which is disappointing, because I would have thought that some of them might have had more to say than they have done so far. And I'm sure it will. With a little bit more time and confidence, they'll probably get to the point where they want to make their feelings felt. But, I agree with you that Andy Barnes, I mean, despite us talking about the cabinet positions earlier on in this episode, what else is there to say? I mean, they're literally going to do nothing, and we're going to be like, right, so next week, Basildon Council, well, a few pigeons landed outside the front door, and a kid fell over. What are we going to talk about? There's going to be nothing to talk about with regards to them. So, we might have to create some of our own drama, I think, with regards to what goes on in that council. Maybe suggest a few ideas that are really good, and then they can just say no to it.
listen, one of the things from my perspective is now I'm in opposition that I can have an awful lot of fun. So, it's so easy being in opposition. Like, genuinely, it's so easy. And to be honest with you, like, look at each other over the course of the last week. They're all just dancing to my tune. So literally from the day before the AGM, when I put out the video about the deal and about putting them in charge and reform could take over, from that moment on, I've dominated the news cycle. So everything that you're saying, I mean, even today, Andy Barnes is posting something about a Carlsberg picture because I posted last week that it's probably the worst first week of any council leader. And if Carlsberg did council leaders, he's probably the best in the world, right? It's that whole kind of thing of, I can just sit here pulling strings and I know where the bodies are buried. I know what difficult choices are going to have to come forward. There isn't going to be any hiding place for them. So I will be exposing them. And, I have my FOIs that are going in at the moment. So I will be, I will be getting all of my responses. They begin on the 17th of June to start coming back. And if they're not, we'll be following up with the auditors. So all that kind of good stuff is there for all to see, and you can feel the disquiet already in the council. So you can feel that there are people who are sitting there thinking, "Is this the right thing to have done?"
I want to ask you about the council and your conduct in it, because some people do criticise and say that there's too much heckling, and I've asked you about this the last time we spoke on the phone in private, and I did ask you, like, do you think it was becoming of you all to kind of be going across the room when the public see that? And you said you're going to have a lot of fun, and I can already predict what kind of fun you're going to have, which is probably more heckling and more jibes. But do you think you achieve anything by doing it? I suppose that's more the question I want to get to, is not the fact that you do it, because I quite enjoy watching it, but because I'm a drama queen. But do you achieve anything from this, and do you think the public appreciate it in general?
It's one of those things, right? Do the public watch education questions in the House of Commons? No. Do they turn up to watch PMQs? Yes. Right. And what happens at PMQs? Everyone
Ding
goes at
dong.
each other's
Yeah.
and they heckle, right? So you get the holier than thou tribe who will tell you on social media that, this is not right and this is not proper. Right? But politics is passionate, right? And it is a battle of ideas. And I enjoy the sledging across the chamber, and I enjoy throwing someone off their line of, or their line of thought or whatever. And that is part of it. As long as you're not, alleging anything improper and you're doing things in the right way, I don't think there's any harm in it. That's part and parcel of being in a council charge. This idea that we should all sit in silence and that we should have no opinions and we shouldn't get riled or vexed about it, rubbish. And you were sat in the public gallery. I was like a yard away from the public gallery where I was sitting. Fucking conspiracy theorists sat behind shouting at me all night that I'm, my business is earning money from this, that, and everything. What the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? But then you'll turn around and you'll say to them, "So, come on in, where's your proof?" And they just melt, these people. And you say, "But don't tell me you've turned up on a Thursday night in the middle of May to come and shout at me. Now I'm here a yard away from you. Tell me what your proof." They can't. But it's like, it's sport to them. It's entertainment. Like, I mean, there are a couple there that I won't say what I was about to say, right? But there's a male and a female. They go to the Weatherspoons for dinner, and then they come over to the council for 7 o'clock to come and watch the meeting.
Are they the pair that I messaged you about, asking who the geezer's name was?
No,
I won't name them, but I'm just asking.
It's another couple. But honestly, it's like a date night for them to come to Basildon Council.
To look at the back of your head.
Basically, for me to stand. And again, you watch it, and it's like, when I'm doing my speech, you've got one guy behind me who's literally like spitting feathers. Even the word Labour, he's like, can't stand it. And all I'm sitting there saying is, you voted for reform, and I think you should govern the council. And I'm going to make that
this
happen.
This is the thing that I've not understood, is that when, like, 2 weeks, it's like the first week, the first interview we did before the election, I was a Labour scumbag and I've sold out. The week afterwards, and I'm trying to say that, reform should be given a good run, I'm still a Labour scumbag and I've sold out. And I'm thinking to myself, you guys are as thick as shit. And I'll be honest, I don't care if that offends anybody, because you guys are the people that have been coming for me saying, no, you didn't broker no deal and you didn't get involved and you fuck off. No one's calling you up to ask you for favours. Just remain in the comment section where you belong. I might respond to a few of when I've got time away from making all my money from all these dodgy deals like Gavin. Do you know what I'm saying? Envelopes coming.
All
Anyway,
mine have stopped.
oh mate, tell me about. I was getting 10% just to keep my mouth shut. So that's me fucked as well.
I'm having to
Um,
fly Jet 2 now.
was it Wizz Air? Yeah. So when I was there, I saw a couple at the back of the room. Now the woman I recognised because she normally smiles at me when she sees me down the town. We drink at the same coffee place. She normally nods and says hello, and I've spoken to her before. Nice as pie. I walked in there, said hello to you, turned around. She's looked me up and down like I'm a piece of shit. The fella next to her is doing the same thing. And I said to her, what's the matter with you? I went, what? And she went, well, she looked me up and down again. I went, you're normally very nice to me. She went, I don't even know who you are. And I went, well, that's a lie, because why would you be looking at me like that? I said, you've seen me before. I said, we say hello to each other at Muscovado in the town. And she goes, oh, you're the laptop guy. And I'm just like, well, sorry, I'm working on a computer while you're pushing around a Nazar trolley with your whole town shopping in it. I don't understand why you always got a trolley. The geezer next to her, lo and behold, has been abusing me anonymously in my Facebook messages, calling me I won't repeat it because we'll probably get kicked off of social media if I say what he says to me in the messages. But some of the things he was saying to me, I'm thinking to myself, this geezer's got a set of bollocks on him. Literally, right behind you, probably one of the same people, 2, 3, 4, 5 foot away from me.
He's on
Didn't say,
camera.
didn't say. Yeah, I know. I've shared an image of him with a dick. Someone drew a dick on him, and I shared it because I thought it was quite funny. Not on the post, but in the comments, just so you knew that I knew who he was. And nothing else has been said. And I do find that people that get passionate about politics in Basildon don't really understand what they're getting passionate about. It's like, I don't understand why people come and have a go at me.
Yeah, but I mean,
I understand because, you bring it on yourself, but I'm a nice guy.
but this comes back to the thing about what we started on. Like, this is why these podcasts are hopefully helpful,
Yeah.
because there is a school of thought. Adele Brown used to say to me all the time, you could cure cancer and they would accuse you of creating a population crisis. Like, there
Mm.
is literally nothing you can do that is going to persuade the Billericay Action Group or these reform guys in the public gallery that anything that I might do might actually be for the right reasons and for good. And there's a part of it that you just have to accept that, right? You're not talking to them. You're kind of just talking to the 5% of people who might be swayable or persuadable in the middle of politics. And that's the same for every political party. I think for me, the thing that I reflect on more since the election, and that I find so heartbreaking really, is how quickly people are able to be bought by the Tories and Reform into believing that they are somehow unworthy of living in a place that should be better than this. And how they are, you've got a Weatherspoons, that's your lot, be happy with it. Now we're moving on to the next town, or now we're moving on to do something else over here. And they're sitting there going, making the arguments back to me, Joe Public, about why the arena was a terrible thing. And I'm sitting there going, you have no idea. Like, if genuinely, if like Barry Hearn and the O2, the people that run the O2, AEG, and the people that run the Cliffs Pavilion, Trafalgar, if all of these people who are multi-millionaires, billionaires in terms of their turnover every year, if they believe this is going to work, why do you, on your 7th pint of cider in the Weatherspoons, know more about the economic analysis of that arena than these multi-billionaires who understand and do this stuff all the time? Why are you taking the word of a bathroom fitter in Andy Barnes or a second-hand jeweler in Sam Genet over what the economic analysis is saying from these people? And it's just so disheartening and heartbreaking that they believe it, and then they will sit there and tell me why I'm wrong, and I'll say, look, okay, you're not getting it now anyway, so you haven't got to worry about it. There won't be an arena, there won't be a box park type facility, there isn't going to be a comedy club, there isn't going to be a live. All of that's gone. That's the consequence of the election, but somewhere, somehow, one of your councillors might be able to stop a boat from entering the country illegally. And isn't it interesting as well? That's the other thing I was going to say, Charlie. Isn't it interesting how all of these council candidates have all gone missing? So, Mr. Gardner over in Langdon, with his sniffly videos that he was recording on a daily basis, now when the public are reaching out to him to ask him for help, he doesn't reply to anybody anymore. He's gone missing. Same with our man up in Wickford. There's a lot of people in Pitsea getting quite annoyed that their reform councillors are not joining the local pages and not engaging with them online as well. So, again, they're in now, they've got to deliver, and we'll be watching.
We will be watching.